The barriers were holding for now, but food supplies were dwindling. Along the reinforced dome, eyes on the relentless shredders pressing against it like a living tide. 3 feet of reinforced composite held firm, but Danny knew adaptation was inevitable. Pests always adapt, he muttered, thinking of the Vin's future. Turning to the gathered council, he addressed Speaker Bloom. I need to see these shredders up close. Understanding them is the only way I can help. A Vin scientist, Root, stepped forward. We have observation posts, she said, but beware, anything organic venturing outside is fair game. Danny slung his pack over his shoulder. Perfect. Let's meet them. At the dome's edge, the observation post revealed devastation. Danny suited up in protective gear coated with a substance that repelled shredders for about 10 minutes. Stepping through the airlock, he saw barren ground, no grass, no plants, just the unyielding swarm. Each shredder was thumb-sized, yet they moved like one organism. Danny extended a baited container. The swarm converged instantly. Inside, he analyzed the catch. Hard shells, multiple legs, knife-sharp mandibles, but most fascinating was their coordination. The swarm acted as a single body, each creature responding to chemical signals with terrifying efficiency. They're like cells in a body, not individuals, he noted. Root leaned in. Exactly. That coordination makes them impossible to fight head-on. Danny cross-referenced his tablet. Army ants on Earth behaved similarly. They could destroy everything in their path, but patterns emerged with careful study. He inquired about reproduction, cycles, vulnerabilities. They spawn continuously, with peaks every 7 days, Root explained. After spawning, they're weaker, focused on reproduction. Danny's eyes lit. The key isn't confrontation, Danny told Speaker Bloom. Treat them like a crop. Harvest enough to control the population, leave the rest to sustain themselves. Bloom's colors flickered in hesitation. You think it will work? It has to, Danny replied. Previous efforts had failed. Running hadn't worked. Fighting hadn't worked. A new approach was necessary. Day 4 brought the first operation during peak spawning. Humans in protective suits moved through swarm zones, vacuuming thousands of shredders per minute, focusing on the slow, newly spawned ones. The Vin watched, simultaneously horrified and amazed. After 6 hours, over 10 tons of shredders had been collected. The swarm, disoriented by sudden reduction, retreated temporarily to regroup. Inside the processing facility, Danny faced another challenge, making the shredders edible for Vin. Their sensitive digestive systems rejected certain glands as toxic. Danny carefully removed harmful parts, preserving nutritious sections, similar to preparing shrimp on Earth. Initial tests favored humans. Flavors had to be adjusted for Vin physiology. Experimentation was meticulous. Every step was measured to maintain nutrition while achieving palatability. Finally, he discovered roasting shredders with a local medicinal plant neutralized bitterness and enhanced protein absorption. Speaker Bloom was first to taste. Hesitation melted into delight as her shell flickered warm golden hues. It is nourishing, she announced. A harmonic cheer echoed across the dome. But Danny knew one tasting was insufficient. Integration into daily life was essential. Volunteers were trained in sustainable harvesting. Gentle by nature, the Vin were uncomfortable killing, but desperation forced adaptation. Each task, harvesting, processing, preparing, was taught with precision and care. Rita established rotational harvesting zones. Carlos monitored population cycles. Sue predicted spawning events. Danny refined recipes, creating shredder cakes, herb-roasted shredders, and even soups that became unexpectedly popular. Vin children, once terrified, began asking for seconds of sweet-spiced cakes. Speaker Bloom's shell shimmered with pride. You've given us more than food, Chef Walsh. You've given us a future. Months passed. Vin Prime transformed. Swarms were no longer threats, they became controlled resources. The Vin expanded beyond the domes, setting up stations for harvesting instead of defense. Danny prepared to leave, but his work had drawn attention. Across the galaxy, other species sought advice on dangerous wildlife and invasive pests. You've become famous, Pip remarked as Danny unpacked his gear. Lorik informed him of the Galactic Council's interest, along with Ambassador Trill's inquiry, questioning humanity's influence. Trill's concern was clear: had humans encouraged predation among civilized species? Danny calmly explained that he introduced nothing new. Predation already existed. His approach simply helped species adapt and survive responsibly. The council chamber buzzed with tension. Trill's body flickered translucent. Chef Walsh, you normalize killing for consumption. Danny leaned forward. No. I contextualize survival. Predation exists everywhere, but I help species manage it responsibly. Quinn supported him, explaining that Danny's methods emphasized understanding ecosystems and balance over senseless violence. Speaker Bloom stepped forward. 3 months ago, my people faced extinction. This human offered perspective, not superiority. He taught survival through adaptation. Silence fell. Representatives began to see the value in his methods. Even the skeptical liquid metal representative admitted observing Vin transformation challenged prior assumptions. Danny provided proof. He presented a feast of dishes from 20 worlds, collaboratively prepared by humans and aliens. This isn't human or alien food, he said. It's shared food. Even predators can build trust and connection. Skepticism turned to curiosity, then enjoyment. Ambassador Trill tasted the dishes, slowly recognizing the truth. Sharing a meal fosters understanding, empathy, and cooperation. Humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council with overwhelming support. Trill's reservations softened. Danny's work expanded. Station Harmony became home to the Galactic Culinary Institute, hosting students from 40 species to learn ecology, food management, and cooperative cooking. Lessons emphasized sustainable harvesting, swarm dynamics, and respecting cultural traditions while preparing meals. Students learned firsthand that understanding food sources improved ecosystem management. Fusion dishes emerged, blending traditions while honoring each species. Vin children collaborated with humans. Avon shared preservation techniques. Silicon students taught extreme heat cooking. Each contributed to a rich tapestry of culinary and ecological knowledge over time. Ambassador Trill joined private lessons, learning preparation and flavor techniques suitable for his photosynthetic diet. Danny emphasized connection over dominance. By semester's end, the institute hosted a grand feast for the council. Meals reflected collaboration and trust. Skeptical species appreciated foods they had previously avoided. Old rivalries softened. Speaker Bloom marveled at the institute's success. Danny reminded them, the goal isn't to make everyone cook like humans. It's to make everyone willing to try each other's ways. Pip demonstrated potential impact. Within a decade, 70% of galactic species could integrate this philosophy. The celebration continued, but Danny slipped into the kitchen to reflect. 6 months ago, humans were considered too dangerous for council membership. Now, they taught the galaxy to cook, to understand, and to adapt. We did this together, he whispered. Pip agreed. Every knife, every lesson, every shared meal symbolized collaboration. New students arrived, nervous but eager. Danny realized the real change had begun. Challenges remained, but solutions were now rooted not in fear or force, but in perspective, understanding, and shared meals. Station Harmony's kitchen had become the heart of galactic cooperation. Outside the dome, the controlled harvesting zones had transformed the Vin's relationship with nature. Shredders, once relentless predators, became a managed resource. Their population was monitored closely, ensuring sustainability. Vin families learned rotational collection, avoiding overharvesting. Danny's team refined protective gear, extending the time humans and Vin could work safely in swarm zones. Observations continued daily, tracking behavioral patterns, reproductive cycles, and adaptation strategies. Data collected here became a template for other species facing similar challenges. Efficiency and care were balanced perfectly. In classrooms, Vin students debated ecological ethics. They questioned whether humans' methods were intrusive or beneficial. Danny encouraged discussion. He emphasized understanding, not dominance. Science lessons merged with culinary training, showing connections between nutrition, ecosystem health, and cultural practices. Students analyzed shredders, calculated population dynamics, and designed harvest schedules. In parallel, they experimented with recipes, adjusting flavor profiles for multiple species. The kitchen became a laboratory of life, culture, and science combined. Every decision had practical and ethical implications, shaping a new generation of responsible ecosystem managers. Rita, Carlos, and Sue became mentors. Rita led workshops on rotational zones. Carlos trained students to track population cycles with precision. Sue taught prediction techniques for peak spawning events. Danny coordinated, combining lessons with practical application. Students learned resilience, observation, and problem-solving. Vin children, initially fearful, began to master safe interaction with the swarm. Confidence grew alongside knowledge. By observing, predicting, and harvesting responsibly, students internalized principles of sustainable resource management. Lessons extended beyond food, touching on cooperation, respect, and adaptation. Months into the program, the Vin community embraced the new approach fully. Fear of shredders vanished. Families participated in rotational harvesting, sharing techniques and recipes. Community meals became celebrations of cooperation. Danny observed progress with quiet satisfaction. The Vin's natural reluctance to harm life shifted toward careful stewardship. He encouraged experimentation with flavor, nutrition, and presentation. Traditional Vin plants were incorporated into shredder dishes. Children became creative chefs, blending ingredients for both taste and nutritional balance. Education and experience merged seamlessly into daily life. The Galactic Council took notice. Delegates from other worlds requested demonstrations. Danny, accompanied by students and Vin mentors, traveled to present methods of sustainable pest management. Workshops covered swarm dynamics, protective gear, rotational harvesting, and recipe development. Participants were encouraged to adapt techniques to local species and ecosystems. Skepticism remained initially, but tangible results spoke volumes. Videos, data sheets, and taste tests reinforced credibility. Delegates observed Vin transformation firsthand, noting improved health, reduced threats, and thriving communities. Danny's holistic approach inspired widespread curiosity. Back on Vin Prime, daily life had transformed. Shredders were predictable, and humans and Vin worked side by side in harvest zones. Observation posts became teaching stations. Students learned firsthand how natural behavior could be guided without destruction. Protective equipment allowed detailed study, and harvesting was approached with mindfulness. Calculations and observations guided every action. Seasons, reproductive cycles, and environmental shifts were documented meticulously. The Vin ecosystem stabilized. Other species, inspired by this success, began replicating the model in controlled pilot programs. Knowledge transfer expanded rapidly across the galaxy. Culinary exploration deepened. Dishes once considered unpalatable became favorites. Shredders, roasted, boiled, or incorporated into cakes and soups, provided consistent nutrition. Vin chefs innovated, blending flavors and textures. Humans learned from Vin techniques, especially in spice use, texture management, and energy-rich preparations. Cross-cultural collaboration became a hallmark. Students from multiple species worked together, fostering understanding through shared labor and creativity. The kitchen became a hub of cultural exchange, empathy, and learning. Danny observed these connections with pride, recognizing the social transformation he had catalyzed. Students documented every stage of harvesting and preparation. Notes, diagrams, and video logs became part of the Institute's archives. Vin mentors emphasized ethical decisions, highlighting the difference between survival-driven action and wanton destruction. Culinary lessons intertwined with ecology, demonstrating how food production impacts entire ecosystems. Recipes were annotated with nutritional data, flavor profiles, and ethical considerations. Interdisciplinary teams, humans, Vin, Avon, silicon-based students, analyzed outcomes. Their collaborative work showcased how shared responsibility and knowledge could harmonize with nature rather than dominate it. Ambassador Trill's engagement increased. He attended cooking sessions, asking questions about nutrition, timing, and ecological impact. His photosynthetic diet presented unique challenges, requiring careful balance between energy absorption and flavor enhancement. Danny worked closely with him, demonstrating techniques to maximize nutrient uptake. Trill's body shimmered subtly when lessons were successful, signaling both satisfaction and learning. Other ambassadors observed and participated selectively. Slowly, skepticism transformed into curiosity, then understanding. Trill's evolution symbolized the wider council's gradual acceptance of Danny's philosophy. The first grand feast was meticulously planned. Tables were arranged by ecosystem type, reflecting the diverse origins of dishes. Vin children, human students, and alien apprentices all contributed. Each plate represented collaboration and cultural exchange. Delegates tasted carefully curated dishes, balancing texture, flavor, and nutritional value. Initial hesitation gave way to appreciation. Conversations at the table shifted from political rivalry to culinary curiosity. The event became a demonstration of Danny's core principle: understanding and cooperation can transcend fear and distrust. Shared meals created empathy across species lines. Feedback from delegates informed future institute programs. Adjustments were made to recipes, harvesting techniques, and student assignments. Data from tasting sessions was combined with ecological observations to refine best practices. Students presented findings to faculty panels, defending choices and analyzing outcomes. Peer review strengthened comprehension and accountability. Vin apprentices learned critical thinking, planning, and adaptation. Humans and alien students improved cultural sensitivity and problem-solving. By embedding learning in practical experiences, the Institute cultivated leaders capable of implementing sustainable practices on their home worlds. Beyond the Institute, Station Harmony became a hub of interstellar education. Species previously isolated by geography, biology, or culture now exchanged ideas. Apprentices traveled to other planets, establishing local programs under Danny's guidance. Reports indicated improvements in community health, food security, and ecological balance. Challenges remained: local pests, climate variability, and cultural resistance, but trained teams approached each issue scientifically and empathetically. Danny emphasized observation over aggression. Each species adapted techniques to their context, using Vin and human methods as templates rather than prescriptions. Back at Vin Prime, the original swarm zones continued to serve as demonstration areas. Harvest rotations maintained population stability. Shredders no longer overwhelmed local flora, and Vin confidence grew. Families, students, and visiting delegates observed and learned. Seasonal cycles were marked with educational events, celebrating both ecology and cuisine. Culinary competitions encouraged innovation while adhering to ethical and nutritional guidelines. Recipes evolved organically, integrating new ingredients and methods from other species. The result was a dynamic, living curriculum that connected culture, science, and practical survival skills. Danny's influence spread through the Galactic Council. Requests for consultancy on invasive species, ecosystem management, and sustainable food practices multiplied. Danny emphasized adaptability and cultural respect, insisting solutions be collaborative. Reports detailed how previous failures stemmed from rigid thinking, lack of local understanding, or disregard for natural cycles. By contrast, Danny's methods prioritized observation, patience, and incremental intervention. Delegates from multiple worlds cited Vin Prime as a model of success. Sharing food, knowledge, and respect became recognized as powerful tools in diplomacy and interstellar cooperation. Personal reflection became a routine for Danny. In the quiet hours of Station Harmony's kitchen, he reviewed logs, recipes, and observational data. He considered each species' needs, the impact of every intervention, and the lessons learned from failures and successes alike. Pip assisted with calculations, predicting ecological outcomes and advising on future projects. Danny realized that true change required persistence, patience, and humility. Leadership was not about imposing solutions but facilitating understanding. Every knife cut, flavor adjustment, and harvesting rotation represented collaboration and trust, reinforcing the Institute's underlying philosophy. As new students arrived, Danny welcomed them with guidance and encouragement. Many were nervous, unaccustomed to cross-species collaboration. Structured mentorship paired experienced apprentices with newcomers. Initial challenges, miscommunication, differing culinary norms, or biological limitations, were addressed through experimentation and dialogue. Students learned that mistakes were valuable, provided they led to insight and adaptation. Then, human, and alien perspectives were integrated, creating hybrid solutions that respected each culture. Confidence, creativity, and cooperation flourished, preparing a generation ready to expand the Institute's philosophy galaxy-wide. The galaxy was changing. Species once isolated or fearful were now willing to collaborate. Swarms and invasive species were managed responsibly. Shared meals, education, and empathy replaced fear and distrust. Danny Walsh stood in Station Harmony's kitchen, reflecting on the journey from crisis to transformation. "We did this together," he said quietly. Pip nodded. Every knife, lesson, and shared meal symbolized the power of understanding over dominance. Challenges remained, but solutions now stemmed from perspective, patience, and collaboration. Across the stars, the seeds of sustainable coexistence had taken root, and the real adventure was only beginning.